I've been in this movement about 5 years. So of course my desktop is filled with folders that help me correct the record. So if I see an article come up in Common Dreams and he gets something wrong, I can correct the record and send him links to the United Nations, how they ruled on it. And he was, Brett Wilkins actually responded to me, and he corrected it. And since then, when he reports on Julian Assange, he reports very accurately. So he responded very positively toward my correct the record. So I have folders of evidence showing, and so I knew for a long time it would be helpful to collect all these. And my work with Julia and Susan lobbying the senators really made it come to a head, because we found ourselves just writing letters and letters, and with this article and this new thing that came up, proving that Julian's a political prisoner or the injustice. And it just becomes so widespread. And so I started doing bullet points, and the bullet points led to, I guess we had a meeting with the state director at Senator Warren's, an in-person one, and I promised her evidence that proved that Julian Assange was not a bad player and he deserved justice. And we did that back in the spring, didn't we? I think it was probably March that I promised that, or April?
May 1st.
May 1st. And so, but it was something that needed to be done a year ago to be helpful for people to advocate for him. So I started compiling it. I knew it was going to be a mammoth job. So there are about 15 of us lobbying in April of this year on Capitol Hill, trying to get Congress people to sign on to Rashida Tlaib's letter. And so I did a cover letter. And I just want to, instead of going in to the evidence files is huge. So this bullet point list of what led to the files, I think is very helpful. And it helped me start to organize my thoughts around it. So in my cover letter, when we dropped off Tlaib's letter with these Congress persons, I just said, just to follow up on Representative Tlaib, she wrote that Mr. Assange is being prosecuted under the notoriously undemocratic Espionage Act, which seriously undermines freedom of the press and the First Amendment. And then underneath that, I wrote a few facts. Assange's work through WikiLeaks has earned dozens of international journalism awards since 2010. Assange has been nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize 18 times since 2011. It's actually 19 times now. WikiLeaks has an 100% accuracy rate. Not one document has ever had to be retracted. A coalition of major press freedom, civil liberty, human rights organizations call for Assange's freedom. It is not true that WikiLeaks dumped information on the internet. Assange carefully redacted and then published on the WikiLeaks website. It is not true that WikiLeaks publications put lives at risk. The Pentagon testified in 2013 that no one was harmed by the WikiLeaks documents. It's not true that Assange helped Chelsea Manning hack into the computers. Manning, an Army intelligence analyst, had top secret security clearance to content she leaked and gave to WikiLeaks. Assange is accused of simply doing journalism, possessing, receiving, and disseminating, publishing classified information which revealed U.S. war crimes. It violates Executive Orders 13526 to cover up or classify evidence of war crimes. The Assange case is not just about Julian Assange. It's not even about press freedom. It's about the horrible things being done by our U.S. military that they don't want citizens to know about. The crime here is not what Assange did. The crimes are what he exposed. And so I made this list, and then I realized I have to back it up. There's nothing, I have to show evidence for that. So I started what turned out to be, it was mostly just a rough thing to give to Senator Warren. But then I dove into it and I said, oh my God, this is a really serious piece of it's kind of like a book, and I wanted it to be good. And Julia said, each chapter needs a table of contents. And I said, oh my God. So she wrote up that for me. It really helped out a lot, because all these parts that went into it, was just took time and organization. I really liked the forward quote that I put in the beginning after the cover page. It was an excerpt from Matt Taibbi. He's a journalist. He wrote an article, and then he protested at the rally at the UK Parliament. And out of his article, his article was Why Julian Assange Must Be Freed. He writes, secrets do not belong to governments. That information belongs to us. Governments rule by our consent. If they want to keep secrets, they must have our permission to do so. And they never have the right to keep crime secret. And that's it. The governments don't want their crimes made public. And so what do? They go after our truth tellers. So there's 10 files. I thought it best to start out with Assange is an award-winning journalist. It's important to everybody know that he's a journalist. So I include, documents showing, yes, he's a card-carrying journalist. There it is. There's all the awards he's won. So I just tried to use screenshots and links. So it's a really good online tool because it's visual, you see it, but you can also, in the PDF, click on the link and it takes you to the article. So I just collected, screenshots of Twitter threads on the Espionage Act. I learned from Michael Tracy on Twitter. He was quoting from a ACLU amicus brief, and that shows that ACLU said the Espionage Act is unconditionally vague because it provides the government a tool that the First Amendment forbids. And that line is just so many nuggets in here. And hopefully, I'm hoping people can use it. It's on the Espionage Act. Let's see, where's my table of contents? I'm sorry. Espionage Act, WikiLeaks responsible redaction process, evidence that refutes the put lives at risk fallacy, evidence that the CIA spied on and plotted to kill Assange. File 5 is Assange prosecution is a targeted political selective prosecution because no one else is being prosecuted, and they also published the same material that Julian did. So that goes back to what Julia said about the hypocrisy in this case. And the evidence of U.S. war crimes that were revealed in the collateral murder video. And file 7 is the extradition hearing that was never reported. And a lot of the testimonies just refuted all the smears that have been launched at Assange over the years. File 8 was the political pursuit of Julian Assange and the mishandling of the Swedish rape case, which was just an investigation. Number 9 is evidence of Assange's deteriorated health in prison. And number 10 is Assange. It's one of my favorite files. It's Assange is a political prisoner. The independent judiciary is a fairy tale in political cases. So this I saw Alina Lilova write a thread about this, and it resonated because of the work that Julia and Susan and I have been doing with the senators, and how they say, oh, I'm sorry, we can't comment on it. It's an ongoing trial. Well, Alina Lilova's thread dealt with this. She said, this is what authoritarian governments do when they don't want to report or to be accountable for having a journalist in prison or that. They say, I'm sorry, our justice system, we're letting them take control of it because it's a judicial issue, not a government. And so they all wash their hands of it by saying, sending us to the Department of Justice to fight for his freedom, when there's nobody there that we can actually talk to. The only people we have to talk to is our state representatives. So that's that. I really like file 10 because it shows that the United States is acting very authoritarian by this, by their spokespeople, the White House spokespeople, the State Department. They say, I'm sorry, we can't comment on that. That's the Department of Justice. But then Merrick Garland hasn't spoken on it. So it leaves us no one to advocate for his freedom.